It was supposed to be the happiest day of Massimo DeLuca's life. Southern California was glowing that morning, sky like silk, the sun gentle but golden. And inside a bulletproof black Rolls-Royce, DeLuca adjusted his cufflinks, sipping a rare single-origin espresso that cost more than most people's rent. He was headed to his daughter's wedding, his only daughter Monica, the last light left in a family shadowed by death. She'd found love. A mature, grounded man, a businessman, she told him. Private, worldly, a little elusive, but respectable. And if Massimo had one weakness, it was Monica. If she was happy, he didn't ask too many questions. The car rolled past security gates taller than most border walls, and his bodyguards followed in unmarked SUVs. The DeLuca estate had always been a fortress. What could possibly go wrong? And then, the phone rang. Not his personal one. Not the business line. The red one. The encrypted, silent line only 4 people had access to. He looked at it like it was a ghost from the past. Reluctantly, he picked up. Sir, the house. It's gone. Static. Then the voice continued, shaky, broken. Everything's gone. The estate is ash. Your men, they're dead. We didn't see them coming. DeLuca didn't speak. Couldn't. His mind raced, first to Monica, then to enemies he thought were long buried. Old debts. Dangerous men. Loose ends he'd paid to disappear. The driver looked back. Sir. DeLuca's espresso cup slipped from his fingers and shattered on the luxury carpet. He didn't cry, didn't shout, but something in his chest started pulling tight, like a rubber band that had stretched too far. The car kept moving, but the world outside had already changed. And just like that, the billionaire king of California's elite lost his throne, without even seeing the fire. Now, here's the part that nobody in his circle ever saw coming. The attack wasn't random. It wasn't some revenge act by a forgotten cartel or a political opponent or a jealous business partner. No, this was personal, calculated, surgical. And it wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning. Because somewhere, just a few miles away, his daughter Monica was slipping into a dress. Smiling. Texting the man she was about to marry. Unaware that she just played the final piece in a revenge puzzle, years in the making. And Massimo? He never made it to that wedding. By the time the full weight of betrayal landed, it would be too late. Too late to stop what was coming next. Too late to save the name DeLuca from being buried forever. Monica was born into power, wealth, and danger. She had everything: private jets, designer dresses, bodyguards lurking in every shadow. But the DeLuca fortune came with a price. A price her father thought he'd paid in full, and paved a life for her using diamonds because they don't crack. But even diamonds crack under pressure. Especially when the cut runs through the heart. Monica Deluca. 19. Beautiful. Dangerous by bloodline. Her mornings began with lemon water and headlines. Her nights, with vintage wine and violins echoing from her father's private orchestra. But outside her golden cage, the streets of Los Angeles whispered a different song. One laced with betrayal, greed, and long-held vendettas. About 4 generations ago, the DeLucas came from Sicily, fleeing famine and forging fortunes from liquor, unions, and fear. Massimo made it legal. Mostly. His daughter was to be the future, and she was. In every calculated step, every cold stare, Monica was born to rule. Before the wedding. Before the fire. Before the name DeLuca was reduced to dust and whispers. There was a man who built an empire on silence, money, and fear. Massimo Deluca. If you lived anywhere near the Southern California coast, you knew the name. The real estate mogul. The philanthropist. The man who turned old money into new kingdoms, who threw charity galas like battle campaigns and treated politicians like chess pieces. His estate, perched high above Malibu, looked down on the world the way he did, with cold calculation and absolute control. But for all the headlines and high society acclaim, the truth behind the DeLuca dynasty was darker. Much darker. And it started with death. First, it was his eldest son, Marco. Just 17. A freak drowning accident at a private yacht party. No witnesses. No suspects. Just a silent burial and a massive donation to a water safety nonprofit the next week. Then came Elisa, his middle child. Found unconscious in her car at a gas station in Pasadena. Carbon monoxide poisoning. Suicide, the paper said. The autopsy said otherwise. But nothing more came of it. And then little Daniel. Barely 9 years old. Gone in his sleep. Heart failure, they said. At 9? That left Monica. His last child. The one who lived. And as the bodies stacked up, so did Massimo's paranoia. He doubled his security detail. He stopped attending public events. And Monica? She wasn't just his daughter anymore. She was his obsession. His redemption. His only reason to keep the empire running. Now here's the part most people don't know. Before Monica turned 10, she wasn't allowed outside without a personal security team. Her school lunches were pre-screened for toxins. Her teachers were background checked by private firms, not the school board. DeLuca didn't just watch her, he owned every environment she stepped into. And what about their mother? Maria DeLuca? Beautiful, elegant, fierce, gone. Some say it was cancer. Others whisper about an overdose. But there are those, people who used to work for Massimo, who claim she found out something. Something about the deaths of her children. And before she could speak on it, she vanished from every photo, every record, and finally, from life itself. Monica was only 12. She didn't cry at the funeral. Didn't speak for weeks. When she finally did, she asked one question. Why do people who love me always disappear? That question stayed with her. Shaped her. She grew up in the gold-plated shadow of a family curse no one ever talked about. Her world was luxury, yes, but it was also isolation. Grief disguised as privilege. Silence dressed up in diamonds. And Massimo? He made sure she had everything, except the truth. Now here's the paradox. The more he protected her, the more vulnerable she became. Because she was raised to believe in perfection. To trust the systems her father built. But all that protection came with a price, naivety. So when someone finally came along who didn't treat her like royalty, who didn't tiptoe around her trauma, someone who looked into her eyes like he saw her, and acted like he really saw her, she fell. Fast and hard. And that someone? Wasn't a stranger. Not really. He was a ghost from Massimo's past. A man who'd once been buried. Forgotten. Left behind in a deal gone dirty. But ghosts, they don't always stay dead. They come back. And when they do, they don't knock. They simply slide in uninvited. That's the thing about family curses. They don't just haunt you. They wait, generation after generation, for someone to step into the trap. And Monica Deluca? She stepped in with her heart wide open. When Monica Deluca walked through the gates of Ridgewood Academy, the most exclusive high school in Southern California, the air itself seemed to shift around her. She didn't walk like royalty, she glided, with that quiet confidence that only comes when your last name can buy silence, sway courts, and bend headlines. Monica wasn't flashy. Not the type to flaunt the DeLuca fortune with diamond handbags or a private driver pulling into the courtyard. No, she played it subtle. Designer sneakers that didn't scream but whispered, "I could buy the school," twice. And while the other rich kids were busy building influencer brands and partying in Beverly Hills, Monica had something none of them did. She wasn't just a student, she was Ridgewood's top-seeded tennis player, and not because she paid her way there. Monica trained like it was war. Practice at 5 a.m., drills until her fingers bled. Winning wasn't an option. It was oxygen. She was used to being alone. The untouchable DeLuca girl. Surrounded by people, but emotionally quarantined. Until her second year, when the school made an unusual announcement. Scholarship recipient, Nicole Perez, will be joining Ridgewood's sophomore class this term. Just a name on a whiteboard. No one paid attention. Except Monica, because the name ended up next to hers. Nicole arrived with a single suitcase and a track bag slung over her shoulder. No personal driver. No designer shoes. Just quiet eyes that looked like they'd seen too much, and legs like lightning. The first time she spoke to Monica, it wasn't to say hi. It was to ask where the weight room was. "You're here on scholarship?" "Yeah. Track. 400-meter sprint. I'm fast when I'm mad." They didn't click immediately. Monica was used to politeness, protocols. Nicole? She was raw. Honest. The kind of honest that cut right through privilege like a scalpel. But something about Nicole's presence unsettled Monica, and intrigued her. Where Monica was all polish and poise, Nicole was fire and grit. She ran like her life depended on it. Like every second shaved off her sprint time erased a bad memory. And Monica? She respected that. By mid-semester, they had synced into an unexpected rhythm. Morning workouts, tennis for Monica, sprints for Nicole. Study sessions that turned into philosophical debates. Late-night food runs. And underneath it all, a growing bond stitched together by shared silence more than words. Because while they came from opposite worlds, Monica from Malibu mansions and Nicole from a modest apartment in Fresno, they both carried weight. Loss. Pressure. Secrets. They just didn't talk about them, yet. It was during a school-wide athletic event, the Ridgewood Invitational, that everything changed. Nicole had just shattered her personal best on the 400-meter dash, and Monica had secured her third straight tennis title that semester. The stadium crowd was electric. That's when he showed up. Tall, charming, with that perfect kind of charisma that doesn't try too hard. His dad owned a string of hotels across Latin America, but Martin's didn't act rich. He was loud, funny, magnetic, a golden retriever in Jordans. He met Monica by accident, or maybe by design, at the post-tournament social. "You move fast on the court," he said, holding out a soda. "And you talk like someone who thinks he's charming," she shot back. He laughed. She smirked. Nicole rolled her eyes in the background. Monica hadn't dated much, not because there weren't options, but because there was always this invisible wall. Her name, her father, her world. Boys got close, and then backed away. But Martin's didn't. He stayed. He cracked jokes in economics class. Started joining them at lunch. Learned Monica's match schedule. And slowly, like water wearing down stone, he broke through. By winter, they were a thing. The DeLuca girl and the hotel heir. Picture-perfect couple. Class president and tennis queen. Ridgewood's own tabloid romance. Nicole didn't say much about it. She played the supportive friend. But if you looked closely, there were glances. Slight shifts. Like something was bothering her. Something she never said out loud. Maybe it was because she knew what Monica didn't. Monica thought she finally had it all: love, freedom, and a friend who grounded her. But what she didn't know was that Nicole wasn't just some scholarship sprinter. And her story, her real story, was about to crash into Monica's world like a bullet in slow motion. And everything would change. Because the past doesn't stay buried. And friendships forged in silence, they hold more power than any love ever could. Before he was Bruno Perez, He was Louis Moretti, a name that once made powerful men sit a little straighter in their leather chairs. He wasn't born into wealth, but into war. A war of backroom deals, silent handshakes, and debts that were never written on paper, only carved into memory. Fresno raised him. The streets sharpened him. And Massimo Deluca? He used him. Back in the 90s, Louis and Massimo were like shadow kings, two young titans rising from different corners of California, trading favors, laundering deals, and building an underground empire underneath the polished glass towers of legal business. But when power begins to bloom, betrayal grows in its roots. Massimo had a gift, not just for business, but for surviving by subtraction. When something became inconvenient, he didn't solve it, he erased it. And Louis Moretti became inconvenient. It was supposed to be a partnership, an investment deal that would flip millions in real estate across Bakersfield and Merced. But when the money disappeared and the feds came sniffing, guess who ended up holding the bag? Not Massimo. Never Massimo. He buried the trail, forged the files, and pushed Louis out like a broken pawn in a rigged game of kings. 6 years. That's how long Louis served. And what broke him wasn't the concrete walls of the prison, it was what happened while he was inside. He lost everything. His wife, Elena, gone. A quiet woman, full of fire and grace. The type who believed in second chances. The kind of love that could have saved him, had she lived long enough to see him free. Elena died while he was behind bars. And even then, Massimo still wasn't done with him. Because that same year, prison guards whispered rumors, a hit had been ordered, not on Louis. On his son, Enzo. 17. A kid with his father's eyes and his mother's courage. But Enzo didn't die. Not that easily. Somehow, no one's quite sure how, he slipped the net. Disappeared across the border into Mexico. Gone like a shadow in the night. The news reached Louis weeks later. No letters. No confirmation. Just whispers. And from that day on, something in Louis broke. But something else woke up. Prison changes a man. But betrayal? That rebuilds him. Louis didn't just want revenge. He didn't want violence or noise. No. He wanted precision. He wanted to take everything Massimo Deluca ever loved, the way Deluca took it from him. So he became Bruno Perez. A new name. A new face. A past scrubbed clean like a ghost no one would recognize. He didn't need guns. He didn't need armies. He just needed time and access. And there was only one way back into DeLuca's world. Through Nicole, his daughter, born in the silence after Elena's death. Raised to be smart, subtle, quietly brilliant. Nicole knew about him from the start. She was the only one who ever visited him in prison. As a teenager, she'd sit across from him, listening more than talking. Eyes locked, voice low. She knew how to wait, how to listen, how to plan. And together, they built something far more dangerous than a hit list. They built a story, a cover, a life. A lie so good, even Monica believed it. But Louis never asked Nicole to help him out of hate. It wasn't revenge he gave her. It was truth. The truth about what DeLuca did to her father. About the fortune built on blood. About the lives shattered just to protect a brand. And Nicole? She didn't become a soldier in her father's war. She became the architect of it. Now here's where it gets poetic. Pain, when given time, becomes discipline. Loss, when channeled, becomes strategy. Louis wasn't some rage-filled relic out for vengeance. He was patient, almost gentle in the way he returned to the world. He didn't show up screaming. He showed up at a school track meet, under a new name, with new eyes. And the first person who saw him, really saw him, was Monica Deluca. But we'll get to that later. For now, all you need to know is this. While Massimo Deluca thought the past was buried, while Monica believed her life was normal. And while Nicole quietly excelled at school, telling no one the truth. A man who was once betrayed, imprisoned, and erased, was walking free again, smiling, watching, waiting. And the first step in his plan was already in motion. Because revenge isn't loud. It's quiet, slow, and beautiful, just like poetry written in fire. It started like most forbidden things do, with silence. Not fireworks, not a love song, just a glance, held for a second too long. The first time Monica Deluca laid eyes on Bruno Perez, he wasn't standing in a spotlight. He was leaning against a chain-link fence at the edge of Ridgewood Academy's track field. Unassuming, uninvited, yet completely magnetic. He was there to see Nicole. But Monica didn't know that. Not yet. To her, he was just a man with posture like a soldier and eyes like he'd lived 1,000 lives. He didn't smile the way boys did. There was no need to impress. His presence was its own gravity. He didn't belong there, and that made her want to know why he was. And as he watched Nicole run her final lap, Monica watched him. Every breath he took, every twitch of his jaw, the slight nod he gave when Nicole crossed the finish line like it wasn't a race, it was a warning. After the meet, he waited near the benches, calm, quiet, alone. And Monica, still flushed from her doubles tennis match, walked up to him without thinking. "You here for someone?" "I'm here for something," he said. That was all it took. Monica didn't know his name that day. Didn't need to. But she remembered everything else. The way his voice sat low in his chest. The way he didn't flinch when she spoke, like he wasn't a man used to being surprised. And she walked away feeling like someone had cracked open a window inside her that had been sealed shut for years. Martins, her boyfriend at the time, noticed the shift almost instantly. Monica grew, distant, unavailable, preoccupied. She still smiled at him, still held his hand, but her mind was somewhere else. And Martins? He wasn't blind. He just didn't know what he was competing with. Because how do you compete with mystery? How do you fight something that's not even named yet? Days passed, then weeks. Bruno never reached out to Monica. He never tried. But that only made him harder to forget. And when Nicole casually mentioned he was her father, just once, just briefly, Monica's heart leapt in a way she didn't understand. "He works overseas. Something oil-related," Nicole said flatly, shrugging. "Does he come around often?" "Not really. He has his own world." That was the bait. And Monica bit down hard. Because what she heard wasn't absence. She heard exclusivity. He didn't belong to everyone. He belonged to a world outside this one. A world she was never allowed to explore. Monica started asking more questions. She'd stop by Nicole's room more often. Lingered. Looked for photos. Mentions. Anything. And Nicole, playing her role to absolute perfection, gave just enough to keep the fire stoked. Never too much. Just enough for obsession to take root. Let's pause here and talk about control. Because here's the secret. Control doesn't always look like force. Sometimes, it looks like freedom. Bruno never told Monica what to do. He didn't chase her. He let her come to him. And in doing so, he became her escape. She wasn't falling in love with a man. She was falling in love with the idea of him. The man who didn't know her past. The man who didn't flinch when he heard her name. The man who looked at her like she wasn't cursed or inherited, but chosen. The first time they spoke privately was at a holiday dinner Nicole invited Monica to. Nothing formal. Just a small family thing, she said. Bruno was there. Sitting quietly at the end of the table. Cutting steak like it was a ritual. When their eyes met across the table, Monica didn't look away. For the first time in her life, she wanted to be caught staring. After dinner, while Nicole cleaned up, he stepped onto the porch. And Monica followed him. The air was cold, but her skin felt warm, like her nerves were on fire. "You don't talk much," she said. "I talk when there's something worth listening to." "And am I? We'll see." That was the beginning. From there, it escalated like gravity pulling a falling star. Phone calls at midnight. Coffee in remote parts of the city. Long drives through back roads with no music, just the sound of wind and breathing. He never kissed her. Not yet. That wasn't his game. And Monica was burning. Martins tried to hold on. He made grand gestures. Surprise dates. Open letters. But Monica was already gone. Not physically. Emotionally. And when she finally ended it, face to face, tears restrained, Martins didn't even ask for an explanation. "I hope whoever he is, he doesn't break you," he said. But that was the thing. Monica didn't think Bruno could break her, because he wasn't like the others. He didn't want her for her name. He didn't look at her like a princess to be one. He looked at her like she was the only real thing in a world full of glass. And slowly, he became more than a secret. He became a sanctuary. Her escape from the DeLuca name. From the guards, the expectations, the pressure. When she was with him, she wasn't Monica Deluca, she was just Monica. And that was intoxicating. But here's what she didn't see. While she was falling, Bruno was planting seeds. Not love. Not commitment. Little things. Slowly. A flight booked in her name. A weekend getaway paid from her card. Jokes about how the banks were annoying. "Just add me to your account, babe, makes it easier." And because she trusted him, because she loved him, she did. Monica didn't see it as giving control. She saw it as sharing. And that's how it happens. Not with theft. Not with threats. But with whispers. Smiles. Open doors. And Monica walked through every one of them. Willingly. By the time Bruno kissed her, really kissed her, she was already his. Not just in body. In trust. In loyalty. In belief. And Nicole? She never intervened. She never warned her. Because she didn't have to. She was watching the plan unfold exactly as it was meant to. Let's call it what it was. A dream. The kind that feels too good to be real, until the moment you realize it isn't. By the time Monica graduated Ridgewood Academy, her life looked like a catalogue of curated perfection. Valedictorian. International tennis invites. A boyfriend who, by all appearances, was a self-made businessman with global clients and a quiet charm. She told her friends his name was Bruno, never Mr. Perez. She never even considered him her father's age. Because when you're in it, when you're swept into the gravity of someone who makes the rest of the world disappear, you don't measure time. You just fall. And Bruno? He didn't pull her in with force. He used something far more dangerous than desire. Patience. They took their time. The kind of time that made it feel safe. Monica moved to Switzerland to study economics. Her father's decision, not hers. He wanted her out of LA, away from distractions, closer to the DeLuca investments in Europe. A future CEO in training. A daughter bred to inherit. But even half a world away, Monica stayed tethered to Bruno. Secret calls that stretched for hours. Weekend escapes disguised as academic conferences. And most of all, those epic holiday trips. Hawaii, Florida, Colorado, then Bangkok, Maldives, Dubai. The more exotic the destination, the deeper she sank. Monica thought she was writing the story of her life. What she didn't realize was, Bruno had the pen. Let's talk about the money. It started like most luxury relationships do, casually. He'd book first-class flights, but Monica would reimburse him. She'd swipe her card without a second thought. Why would she? She'd been born into wealth, trained to trust, raised to not worry. But Bruno? He was a master in the art of erosion. He never asked for much, at first. One day, it was a property investment in the UAE. Babe, it's just a holding move. Safer if you sign off. We'll transfer it back when my office finishes the licensing. Then, it was a joint account in Monaco, just for travel expenses. Later, offshore transfers to protect our wedding plans from tax liabilities. He didn't drain her account overnight. He took it drop by drop. And every transaction came wrapped in affection. I'm building this for us. One day, our kids will thank you. You make me feel like I can start again. And Monica, in love, in awe, and in over her head, agreed to everything. Now here's what you need to understand. This wasn't just manipulation. It was choreography. Every move calculated. Every decision prepped months in advance. Nicole played her role to chilling perfection. Whenever Monica had doubts, Nicole soothed them. You're the best thing that's ever happened to him. He's never smiled the way he smiles around you. He's different with you. You changed him. And Monica believed it, not just because she wanted to, but because she needed to. After a life of death, secrets, and grief, she finally felt like she was in control of her own story. But the truth? She wasn't the author. She was the asset. Bruno never rushed the next step. He let her bring it up. The wedding. It was Monica who said it first, half joking over champagne in a glass-bottom villa in the Maldives. Maybe we should just get married. Fly to Italy and disappear. Bruno paused, looked her in the eyes, and said, if you say the word, I'll make it happen. That night, they didn't sleep. That was the night Monica gave him everything. She called her father a week later. Papa, I've met someone. Massimo didn't ask questions. He didn't suspect a thing. As long as Monica sounded happy, and far from scandal, he played along. Bring him to dinner sometime, he said. But Bruno was always busy. Business, time zones, delays, always unavailable, always just out of reach. And Massimo, perhaps a little too arrogant to imagine someone would dare deceive him, never pushed. And Bruno? He watched the DeLuca empire crack, one phone call at a time. There's something cruelly poetic about it all. A man once betrayed, once left to rot in a cell, now standing silently behind the very gates that once shut him out. He wasn't just siphoning money. He was dismantling a legacy, quietly, patiently, flawlessly. And Monica was the golden key. But love makes fools of us all. Even Bruno. Because somewhere between the transactions and the lies, something shifted. It wasn't love. Not in the pure sense. But it was tenderness. The kind that sneaks up on even the coldest hearts. He began to hesitate. Not with the plan, but with the end of it. Because when the setup was finally complete, when the accounts were emptied, the properties shifted, and the wedding invitations mailed, Bruno stood at a crossroads. He could vanish. Right then. Let the wedding never happen. Let Monica mourn another ghost. Or he could finish it. Burn the house. Face Massimo. And deliver the ending he'd been crafting for 2 decades. He chose the latter. Because this wasn't about Monica anymore. This was about the man who once thought he could bury the past and walk away clean. Massimo Deluca was about to find out. The past never forgets. And when it comes for you, it comes with interest. Two lives. Two truths. And only one of them was real. Monica Deluca was living a fantasy, A love story of hidden islands, whispered promises, and a man who made her feel like the center of a universe spun just for her. The kind of story you only find in books with torn covers and tear-stained pages. But behind that fantasy, behind the candlelit dinners and first-class flights, was another life. A colder one. A calculated one. A second reality woven into the first like invisible thread. And that thread was being pulled slowly, by two people who knew exactly what they were doing. Bruno Perez and his daughter Nicole. Let's rewind for a second. From the outside, Nicole and Monica were inseparable. Roommates turned best friends. Their social media feeds filled with weekend brunches, matching gym outfits, and heartfelt birthday captions. My ride or die two hearts. Wouldn't survive college without you dizzy. But inside those likes and hashtags lived something deeper. A hidden purpose. Because Nicole wasn't just Monica's best friend. She was Bruno's eyes and ears. From the very beginning, Nicole had been feeding him intel. Monica's moods. Her insecurities. Her arguments with her father. Every weak point, exploited with surgical care. And Monica never saw it. Why would she? Nicole never pushed. She never pried. She simply listened. That's the thing about silent strings. They're invisible until they're yanked. Now here's where it gets deeper. While Monica was off studying economics in Switzerland, building the future her father designed for her, Bruno was building his empire behind the scenes, with her money. Company registrations. Shell corporations. Land purchases in South America. Accounts in the Cayman Islands, the British Virgin Islands, even Luxembourg. Each registered to a different holding trust. All untraceable. All legally airtight. And Monica? She thought it was for their future. Every time he asked her to sign something, he made it sound romantic.
I want this to be ours. Let's build something together, away from your father's shadow. This is how we protect what's real.
She'd spent her entire life under her father's microscope. For the first time, she felt seen, not monitored. She thought she was becoming her own woman. But she wasn't. She was becoming his creation. Meanwhile, Nicole was living a double life of her own. By day, she was a medical student, acing anatomy exams, volunteering at clinics, wearing scrubs like armor. By night, she was the strategist behind the operation. Nicole had access to Ridgewood's alumni network, to Monica's digital calendar, to encrypted apps and burner phones Bruno used to communicate. She even managed timelines, when Monica would be abroad, when she'd be most vulnerable, when Massimo would be least suspicious. She kept things moving like a conductor in an orchestra only she could hear. And Bruno? He played his part with precision. Always just unavailable enough to remain mysterious. Always present enough to remain irresistible. Now let's talk about the lies. They weren't sloppy. They were art. Bruno told Monica he was in Dubai on a business deal, while he was actually in Buenos Aires, finalizing a resort purchase under a shell company called Enzo Holdings Limited. Yes, that Enzo. He said he was consulting on a pipeline project in Eastern Europe, when in reality, he was meeting with former associates, reviving old alliances, and laying the legal groundwork to unseat Massimo's influence in California's infrastructure contracts. All while Monica was busy defending his absences to her friends.
He's just different, you know? He's not clingy. He has goals. I respect that. My dad appears not to like him much, so I know he's the one.
She was his alibi, his shield. And without knowing it, she was also his partner in crime. But here's where the strings really start to tighten. Massimo Deluca. He'd always had eyes everywhere. But he was getting older. Slower. And when he looked at Monica, he didn't see a threat. He saw a daughter in love. He didn't question her trips. Didn't ask why she suddenly needed a separate trust fund. Didn't notice the subtle shift in her voice when she mentioned Bruno. Because Massimo believed he'd eliminated every threat years ago. He believed Bruno Perez was dead. And that's what made the setup so perfect. While he was sleeping soundly in his Malibu fortress, the man he betrayed was building an army using his own daughter's bank account. Let's pause here. This isn't just a story about revenge. This is a story about precision. A story where love is a weapon, and trust is the blade. Because Bruno didn't raise Nicole to be violent. He raised her to be ruthless with empathy. And Monica? She never stood a chance. So while the world thought Monica Deluca had everything, wealth, love, freedom, she didn't realize she was walking through a house made of glass. And every smile she gave Bruno was another stone in her own collapse. Because strings, when pulled just right, don't just move people, they destroy them. If every great con has a closing act, then this was it. The final illusion. The ultimate performance. The softest whisper before the loudest fall. It began, strangely enough, not with a proposal, but with a question. They were in Santorini, late August. The sun was melting into the sea like a gold coin dropped into deep water. Bruno had just poured Monica another glass of wine, and she was glowing. From the sun, from the view, from the kind of love that feels earned after years of secrecy. She leaned her head on his shoulder and said, not nervously but certainly,
"Do you think we'll ever make it official?"
Bruno turned his face toward hers, and smiled like the answer had always been yes.
When you're ready.
3 words. That's all it took. And just like that, she proposed. It wasn't on one knee. It wasn't scripted or filmed. It was real, or at least, it felt that way to her. They toasted. They kissed. She cried a little, said she'd finally tell her father. And Bruno? He held her hand a little tighter. Because the final play had just begun. Back home in California, Monica sat across from Massimo Deluca in the family's garden terrace. He was sipping espresso, eyes fixed on a set of quarterly reports, when she said the words,
"I'm engaged."
He blinked once, set the papers down slowly.
To who?
There was a pause. The kind of pause only fathers with buried instincts know how to fill.
What does he do?
He consults. Business development, mostly overseas.
How long have you known him?
Since high school.
You never mentioned him.
She smiled, nervously.
I wanted to be sure. Now I am.
Massimo exhaled, folded his arms, and finally said,
Bring him to dinner.
And that's where the magic of the act unfolded. Because Bruno never came. Every time Massimo scheduled a dinner, Bruno found an excuse. Flight delays. Deal negotiations in Qatar. Caught in a storm near Johannesburg. The excuses were airtight. International. Vague but plausible. Delivered through Monica with enough frustration to sell the story. And each missed meeting only made Monica push harder. Because now it wasn't just about love. It was about proving something to her father. That she was a woman. Independent. In control. Capable of choosing her own future. What Monica didn't see was that every no-show from Bruno wasn't a flake. It was a calculated move. The more elusive he became, the more Monica fought for him. She defended his name in every conversation. She vouched for his businesses. She started transferring larger and larger sums into shared accounts to help with planning. From custom ring designs in Dubai, to paying for venue deposits in Italy, to yacht bookings in Mykonos. Monica covered it all. Why wouldn't she? She had no prenup. No reason not to trust him. Because when you're in love, you don't ask for receipts. You ask for forever. Meanwhile, Nicole played her role like a ghost. Always just supportive enough. Always silent when suspicion was warranted. One night, Monica asked her outright.
Isn't it weird that he hasn't met Papa yet?
Nicole didn't even blink.
He's just cautious. Your dad isn't exactly warm. Still, you chose love. That's brave, Mon.
Monica smiled, relieved, because that's all she wanted. Someone to say she was brave. Not naive. Not reckless. Just brave. As the engagement went public in their social circles, Monica was radiant. Her Instagram became a montage of champagne flutes, golden sunsets, and captions like,
"He's worth the wait. My forever started long before this ring."
And Bruno? Still no public appearance. Not even a voice call with Massimo. Just occasional video messages for Monica, recorded from hotel rooms that looked expensive but always impersonal. He blamed bad signals, tight schedules, jet lag. But what he never said was, "I'm coming home." Because home wasn't part of the plan. Only the heist was. Here's the part that hurt the most. Monica believed she was controlling the pace, that she was protecting him from her father, that she was orchestrating a delicate merging of two worlds. But in truth, Bruno was controlling the tempo, because the longer he stayed absent, the stronger Monica's resolve grew. Her love became her rebellion, and in that rebellion, she handed him everything he needed, every last key. As the wedding date neared, Bruno pulled his most important move yet. He disappeared for 10 full days. No messages, no calls, no updates. Monica panicked, called embassies, texted Nicole, emailed his business contacts. She thought he was in danger. Then, on the 11th night, she received a message.
"I'm safe. I love you. Everything's ready. Just trust me."
And she did. She always did. Back at the DeLuca estate, Massimo grew restless. He ordered background checks. Nothing came back. No digital footprint. No tax records. No verified passport under the name Bruno Perez. He started asking questions. Too late. Because while he was digging, the money had already moved. The estate titles had already shifted. The fortress was already hollow. And the wedding was already scheduled. The stage was set. Monica was in love. Massimo was suspicious. Bruno had vanished into the shadows with just enough mystery to keep the illusion alive. And in the silence, the final strings were tightening. Because a vanishing act isn't just absence. It's a message. I was never yours to begin with. A legacy sealed with champagne and designer lace. The last and only DeLuca child. Finally getting married. The sun rose gently over Southern California, casting gold across the hills. Monica's wedding gown hung on its custom hanger like a final promise. Fresh orchids lined the glass chapel on the cliffs of Big Sur, flown in overnight from Indonesia. Security was tight. Catering, Michelin level. Every detail had been touched by money, and Massimo's pride. He may not have met the groom, but the event was a message. The DeLuca name is still strong, still untouchable. But just before noon, everything changed. It started with a call. Massimo Deluca was in the back of his Rolls-Royce, en route to the venue. He wasn't on edge. He wasn't nervous. He was, oddly, content. He'd made peace with the unknown groom. Love was unpredictable, after all. And Monica had finally taken charge of her own life. For once, he wasn't controlling the outcome. Then his phone vibrated. Not the standard line. The encrypted one. The one only a handful of men in his private network were allowed to use. He answered, casually at first.
Yes.
Silence. Then static. Then a breath. And finally, the words.
Sir, the estate, it's gone.
Massimo blinked.
Gone? What does that mean, gone?
It's burning, sir. Everything. The house, the vaults, the staff, all of them. Dead. Slaughtered.
There was a long pause, too long.
Who?
The voice didn't respond right away.
We don't know. They were already inside.
Massimo's hand trembled. Not because of the fire, not because of the deaths, but because of the efficiency. This wasn't an attack. This was a statement. A war declaration, with no warning shots. He hung up and whispered 2 words.
Turn around.
But they couldn't. The coastal road was too narrow. And the next pullout wasn't for 5 more miles. 5 miles of knowing his legacy was literally burning to the ground. The old guards he'd trusted. The surveillance systems. The armory in the basement. The hidden archives. All of it, ashes. Meanwhile, at the venue, Monica was all smiles. Hair pinned in soft curls. Dress zipped up. Makeup flawless. She was walking into her new life with no idea that the house she grew up in, the home that shaped her, was gone. She thought her only surprise that day would be whether Bruno cried when he saw her. She didn't know he wouldn't be at the altar. Not right away. Bruno had arrived earlier than everyone. He didn't come through the main entrance. He didn't come in a tux. He came through the back, dressed in black, like a man attending a funeral. No security stopped him. No one suspected a thing. Because by then, he owned the venue. Nicole arrived next. Poised. Calm. Clutching a small box. Not a gift. Not rings. Documents. The final pieces of the operation. Because while Monica had spent the last 6 months choosing flowers and tasting cake samples, Nicole had been moving the last of DELUCA'S holdings offshore. The wineries. The shipping investments. The intellectual properties tied to Monica's trust. Gone. Liquidated. Reassigned. By the time Monica walked down the aisle, there was nothing left to inherit. Massimo finally arrived, heart racing, suit jacket clinging to sweat. He stormed inside. Guests turned. Cameras flashed. Confusion rippled through the crowd. And then, he saw them. Bruno. Standing at the altar. Smiling. Massimo stopped cold. His face turned pale. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Because standing next to Bruno was someone else. Enzo. His face older, sharper, scarred by time, but unmistakable. The boy he thought was dead. The boy he'd tried to erase. And beside him, Nicole. Not just Monica's best friend. His enemy's daughter. Massimo stumbled. His chest tightened. He grabbed at the air like it could anchor him. Then came the words from Bruno. Calm. Steady. Sharp.
It's over, Massimo. You don't own her. You don't own anything anymore.
He collapsed before he could answer. Clutched his chest. Fell sideways. Paramedics rushed in. Chaos broke out. The wedding guests screamed. And Monica, frozen in place, watched it all unfold. She didn't move. Couldn't. Because in that moment, the world split open. In the hospital, Massimo lay in a private ward, attached to machines that beeped like a countdown. His mind spiraled between past and present, between deals gone wrong and ghosts coming home. He saw Bruno in the doorway. Alive. Victorious. With both his children at his side. Bruno didn't say much. He didn't have to. The look in his eyes said it all.
This is the cost of betrayal. This is the debt you never thought you'd pay.
And as the machines flatlined, Monica stood outside the room. Tears in her eyes. Dress now wrinkled. Makeup streaked. Nicole stepped beside her. Silent. Monica whispered.
Why?
Nicole turned slowly, and without malice said,
Mon, I am a bit confused here as well. I've 1,001 questions running through my mind right now.
Monica looked through the glass while her father remained motionless. At the man she'd trusted. At the ashes of everything she thought was true. And in that moment, she understood. She hadn't lost a wedding. She'd lost the lie her life was built on. The day wasn't about vows. Or rings. Or kisses. It was about reckoning. A final balancing of the scales. And Bruno? He didn't steal the DELUCA'S fortune. He collected it. There are heartbreaks that crack like thunder, loud, messy, chaotic. And then there are the quiet ones. The kind that don't break you all at once. They peel you apart, layer by layer, until you're just a hollow shell of who you thought you were. For Monica Deluca, this wasn't just a heartbreak. It was an unraveling of identity. A daughter who trusted too much. A lover who gave too much. A woman who now realized she was never in control. In the sterile quiet of a private hospital wing, Monica stood frozen, still in her wedding dress, but it no longer fit. Not because it was too tight or too loose, but because it was never made for a bride who had just witnessed her father's empire collapse, her fiancé vanish into vengeance, and the truth rip her life apart like an earthquake cracking a cathedral. Massimo Deluca, once invincible, lay still. Not a titan. Not a mogul. Just a man on life support. Trying to recover from a heart attack, minutes after seeing his ghost. And Bruno? The man she thought would be her husband? She wondered where he was, what he was doing. Was he ever going to come back? She sat beside her father's hospital bed for hours. No tears. Just silence. The room was thick with regret and things left unsaid. And somewhere in her heart, Monica still hoped this was all a terrible dream. That Bruno would walk in, explain everything, say the whole thing had been a mistake. Let's rewind for a moment. To what Monica believed. She believed Bruno loved her. That every kiss was real. That every holiday was theirs. That when he called her his future, he meant it. But as she sat there, watching the machines being unplugged, the reality hit her like a slow, rising tide. None of it was real. Not the offshore accounts. Not the joint ventures. Not the dream. It had all been a setup. A seduction built not from passion, but from strategy. A few minutes later a doctor walked in, checked the machines and told Monica and Eric that Massimo would hopefully make it back, but with some consequences. Those words brought some relief to them. As the doctor left the room, Monica gazed at the life support machine screen like she was confirming what she's just been told. Then the door opened. Nicole steps in followed by Enzo, then Bruno. Could the moment Monica prayed for just arrived? Would Bruno just tell her this was a terrible mistake? As Bruno steps closer to Massimo's bed, he reaches from his shirt pocket, brings out a picture, then calls out to Massimo.
Signore.
Surprisingly, Massimo opens his eyes, nods his head acknowledging Bruno's presence. Monica's a bit surprised. Raising the picture to Massimo's view, he queries him.
Do you remember this room, or one very much like it? 15 years ago, you sat across from me. You promised a partnership. You offered me a future. And then, you took it all.
His words dripped with venom like she'd never heard before. Massimo pale, still, his gaze locked with Bruno's. As he continues.
6 years, Massimo. 6 years of my life stolen. 6 years I spent behind bars while you prospered. My family's name dragged through the mud. My fortune gone. And you thought you were safe, didn't you? Your little rich girl never knew the truth.
Monica in a trembling voice asks.
Bruno, what are you talking about? What is going on?
She wasn't getting any response from Bruno, so she turned to Nicole.
You knew everything all along. You knew Bruno never loved me. You knew he didn't come for love.
Nicole, without malice, didn't offer comfort but truth.
He loved you in his own way, deeply. He came for you, but most importantly, he had to recover his balance.
You used me.
Monica looked at her, hollow.
He used both of us.
But you knew. You knew everything from the beginning.
Nicole paused, then said,
What you and Massimo took away from me in childhood, I have reclaimed in adulthood.
As the Mauritis left the hospital room, Massimo already passed out. There's something about betrayal that goes deeper when it comes from women, from sisters of the soul. Monica wasn't just mourning Bruno. She was mourning Nicole too. The sisterhood, the trust, the late-night talks and shared dreams. All of it, fabricated. All of it, tactically designed. She looked back and saw every red flag that had once looked like roses. The dodged questions. The way Nicole always kept her answers vague. The calculated empathy. It wasn't friendship. It was intelligence gathering. And Monica? She'd given Nicole every password without ever touching a keyboard. Heartbreak comes with stages. But Monica didn't have time for stages. She went straight to grief. Not for the loss of love, but for the loss of self. Because when you realize your life has been a lie, you don't just question others. You question yourself. How didn't I see it? Why did I let it happen? Who am I now? In the days that followed, Monica buried her father. A quiet ceremony. No headlines. No press. Just family. Or what was left of it. Eric, her cousin, her only surviving connection to the DeLuca bloodline, stood beside her. Silent. Supportive. But even he couldn't reach the part of her that had been carved out. Monica wasn't mourning just a parent. She was mourning a life that never really belonged to her. She was the last DeLuca standing. But standing in what? There were no assets left. No homes. No inheritance. Just the name. And even that had been poisoned. Here's the cruelest part about truth. It doesn't arrive like a rescuer. It arrives like a mirror. And what Monica saw staring back at her was someone she didn't recognize. She disappeared for a while after that. No posts. No contact. No explanations. People whispered. The tabloids speculated. But Monica didn't owe the world an explanation. She had to rebuild from inside. The woman who had once signed trust funds and walked red carpets now worked in silence, attending therapy under a false name. Reading. Writing. Learning to live without security, without status, without illusions. And in the process, she began to wake up. Not with anger. Not with revenge. But with something far more dangerous. Clarity. She finally saw her father for what he was. Not a protector, but a man who built walls so high, she mistook the prison for a palace. She saw Nicole not just as a betrayer, but as a girl shaped by grief, just like her. And Bruno? She didn't know if what he felt for her was real. But it didn't matter anymore. Because what she gave him, he would never be able to return. Not the money. Not the time. Not the trust. Not the love. And that was heartbreak. Not in the crying, but in the understanding. The headlines faded. The tabloids moved on. And the name DeLuca, once spoken in boardrooms and whispered in elite circles, became just that. A name. No empire. No heirs. Just silence where power used to be. But not everyone disappeared. Nicole Perez, or Moretti, as the world would later learn, finished med school quietly. She chose a clinic in northern Arizona, far from the spotlight, far from the echoes of a life orchestrated like a war symphony. She didn't speak about what happened. Not to journalists. Not to friends. She just worked. Some say she kept a photo of her mother in her office drawer. Others say she still receives encrypted messages once a month from someone in a different time zone. Someone like Bruno. And Bruno? No one knows for sure. He was last seen in Marrakesh, stepping into a black vehicle without plates, wearing sunglasses and that same unreadable expression. There's no warrant. No charges. Because everything he did was legal. The documents were signed. The accounts were verified. The transfers, legitimate. It wasn't theft. It was consent. He didn't take DeLuca's fortune. It was given to him, piece by piece, by a daughter who believed in love more than legacy. So was it justice? That's the question history will keep asking. Some will say yes. That Massimo Deluca built his world on blood and betrayal. That Bruno didn't destroy anything, he merely returned what was stolen. Others will call it revenge. A con. A heartless plot played out with surgical cruelty. But here's the truth. It was never about money. It was never about pride. It was about pain. Two families bound by tragedy. Two daughters raised in the shadows of powerful men. And one man, Bruno, who refused to die with his shame. And Monica? She never reclaimed the DeLuca name. She changed it. Quietly. No press release. No vanity announcement. Just a signed form, slipped across a DMV counter, with a sigh and a final stroke of a pen. She moved to Portugal for a year. Taught tennis to children in a small coastal town. Laughed again. Cried harder. Wrote letters she never sent. And every night before bed, she read one page from a journal titled, "What I Didn't Know Then." Was she a victim? Yes. But she wasn't weak. Because surviving a story like this isn't weakness. It's rebirth. She didn't seek vengeance. She didn't chase answers. She lived. And sometimes, that's the most powerful thing you can do. In the end, the question still lingers. Was it justice? Or just a beautifully orchestrated revenge? Maybe both. Maybe neither. But one thing is certain. Bruno didn't walk away with just money. He walked away with silence. And silence, in stories like this, is the loudest victory of all. Would it remain that way, or would there be noise?